Homemade chana masala at a fraction of what you would pay in a restaurant and much better for you. I'm Urvashi, my blog is TwoSleevers.com, and I'm going to show you how to make a wonderful vegan chickpea dish at home. If you've ever been to an Indian restaurant, it's called chana masala. Chana means chickpeas, masala means a spice, and we're going to make it in a slow cooker today. What we're going to need is dried chickpeas. I took a cup of dried chickpeas and I soaked them in hot water for about an hour. As you see, they're plumped up. It's almost the same as doing it overnight. So that hot water trick is super important. You are then going to need a half a cup of chana dal, which is the same thing as the chickpeas, just cut in half. Chopped up onion, a little bit of ginger, that's about how much ginger I have, some garlic, some serrano peppers, canned tomatoes or 1 cup of regular tomatoes. If you're using canned ones, use the ones with their liquid. And normally I ask you to make your own spices, but this sorry. Okay, I've made a mess. We're just gonna have to cope. Normally, I ask you to make your own spices. This one has so many different spices in it, so many different seeds and other kind of herbs and stuff in it that unless you want to buy 40 different things, take my advice, spend the $3 for this chana masala. I will link to it in the post as well as in my video. And then you're gonna need the usual complement of Indian spices. In this case, we're gonna use salt, turmeric, cayenne pepper, and this is a mix of cumin and coriander. Get your blender out. Now, if you don't have a blender, don't worry about it. Just chop everything in here as finely as you can and it will be just fine. All right, so let's do this. So what you want to do with the blender is you want to start with the most liquid ingredient at the bottom. This allows the blades to spin more freely. This is about 2 cups of onion, so it was a 1.5 large onions. You can use white or yellow for this one. Put in the garlic, the ginger, and the serrano. This is a Vitamix. I'm going to run it at 5. Okay, I have a pretty homogeneous sauce in here. We're going to put this in the slow cooker. Now you can do this in the Instant Pot or a regular pressure cooker. It'd be a lot faster. I already have a pressure cooker chana masala recipe on the blog, TwoSleevers.com. So if you're trying to do it in a pressure cooker, do it that way. We're going to take this and pour it in here. I'm going to put in a little bit of water. I started out with about 3 cups of water. We'll see how much we need. Okay. Now in here, I'm going to put in all of my spices. So this thing is called a masala dabba. Masala means spices, dabba means a tin. And so this is a very standard thing in Indian cooking. All of us have one of these. Every household has different things that are in there. I'm going to start with a 1 teaspoon measure. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of turmeric, 1.5 of salt. Now this cayenne, you decide how much you want. You probably want 1/4 of a teaspoon. I usually put in more. And then the cumin coriander mix, I'm going to use a teaspoon of that. And then my chana masala. Now it's going to depend on the type of chana masala you have. And then I have to smell it. I'm sorry, I hope it doesn't offend anybody. Yeah, it's gonna need the rest. So start with it 1 tablespoon of chana masala, okay? Now one thing that I have often done is I've put the spices into the blender and blended it. If you have a plastic container, don't do that because the turmeric will stain the plastic. If you're using a glass container or one of those, you know, newfangled Triton kind of things that doesn't stain, then you can put all the spices in, blend it, and just pour it. This was 1 cup dry, and then let me explain why I'm doing this. This is actually a home style trick that we use, and it is to lend a certain amount of thickness. By the time these beans cook down, this is going to be absolute delicious mush. It's gonna cook way down, it's gonna thicken the curry in a really nice way, and you're gonna be super happy with it. As I said, if you don't have this, you have a few options. 1, leave it out. So what if it's a little bit thin? It'll still be delicious. 2, when this is finished cooking, take some of the chickpeas out. Use an immersion blender or the back of a spoon, mash it and put it back in to get some thickness. Or 3, put in a can of chickpeas, can of cooked, obviously it's canned chickpeas, so it's cooked. Put in a can of chickpeas in here if you like, and that will mush down over, you know, a 6 to 8 hour cooking time period. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in, and then I'm gonna put a controversial for some, but necessary for me ingredient. And that is going to be about 1/4 of a tablespoon of oil. Okay, look, if you're making this not in a slow cooker, if you're doing this a traditional Indian style, there's probably 1/2 cup of oil in it. The oil really helps to bring out the flavors from the onion and the tomatoes when you're roasting and caramelizing them. Now, there's going to be some of that happening in a slow cooker because it's a long braise and it's a slow braise. So some of that is going to lend itself, and you want a little grease in your little flavor from that oil in there. Now, what you don't want is this to be too terribly liquidy. I think the biggest problem with slow cooking is that people put in way too much water. So I put in another cup. So we have about 2 cups of water in here. It looks very watery right now, but the chana is going to absorb a lot of it. We're going to turn this on, and I'm going to put it on high. This, by the way, is a $20 slow cooker that I got a long time ago, so it's nothing very fancy. Now, the Instant Pot also has a slow cook function. In an Instant Pot, low is the same as a keep warm setting on a regular slow cooker. Their medium setting is the same as low on a regular slow cooker, and their high is the same as high. So basically, the easy way to remember this is don't ever use low. Use either medium or high, depending on what it is you're trying to do. And I want to point out that this was not complicated. If you can measure, chop, blend, and stir, you can make this chana masala, okay? I'm gonna set my timer for 4 hours because I'm home, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna look at it and see if it needs anything or not. Okay, so we're back. It's been about 5 hours on high. Now, at 4 hours, when I checked the beans, they were done, they were cooked. But as I mentioned earlier, what you want for this recipe is you want the beans to be a little bit mushy and broken down. So let's check it and see what's going on. There is one ingredient we didn't add earlier, and that is tamarind concentrate. So you buy it in a jar. It looks kind of very unassuming, but it's actually delicious. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this up, and I'm going to put in about a tablespoon's worth of tamarind extract into this. Now you're going to ask me why I didn't put this in earlier. The reason I didn't put this in earlier is sour things like tomatoes and tamarind will sometimes keep beans from cooking, and it'll take a lot longer for beans to cook. So you want to add that towards the end. Taste it. That is it. That is it. Okay, so now let me show you the consistency. This is a pretty thick dal. It depends on how you're going to eat it. If you're going to eat it over rice, you're going to want to add water to this. If you're going to eat this with naan or with chapatis, you don't want to add water to it because you kind of want it to be scoopable. Now, let me hold this up. Remember earlier we had put 2 types of dal in here. This is the whole bean in there, and that's intact. And then this is the little half bean that we had used. I'm going to also serve it with rice. So let me thin it down and you can see what that's supposed to look like. You can add a bit of lime juice, it's optional. And then you want to sprinkle it with cilantro. For those of you who hate cilantro, use parsley. And your chana masala is done. Now, if you want a recipe for how to make this in the pressure cooker, check out my blog, TwoSleevers.com, and look for home-style chana masala on the blog. I'm Urvashi. I hope you watch the next video. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching.